Everyone, please stand and join us with a moment of silence followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Hello everyone, my name is Amy. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 29th, 2010. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night meeting, the Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but spouses are welcome to attend. Or we need to get this changed. We send a special welcome to any visitors, thank you, from out of town. Please stand and introduce yourself. Seth. Nice. Nice. Welcome. Also, anyone who may be visiting the Treasure Map meeting for the first time, please stand and be recognized. Finally, is there anyone here who is at their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? Please stand and be recognized. We are very happy that you came tonight. What's your name? Brooke? Welcome, Brooke. You are absolutely welcome here. If you would like, in the break or after the meeting, you can stop at the welcome table in the back and get some information. Thanks so much for being here.
Welcome, Brooke.
The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight that are willing to be sponsors. If you are new or if you don't have a sponsor, you can stop at the back table during the break and see Randy for names and numbers of home group members willing to sponsor others. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous celebrates our sobriety birthdays on the last Thursday of each month. The Treasure Map home group celebrates each month of sobriety for the first 12 months and then every consecutive year thereafter. If you would like to make the Treasure Map group your home group, please see again Randy at the back table for details. I don't have a current list, but I know there are some on the list for birthdays this month. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous is committed to bringing a message of hope to those who suffer from alcoholism. We believe this message is contained within the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and our personal experiences. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Tonight, we will be focusing on step 12, and our study will begin shortly. So if you need a big book, just raise your hand and we can get one to you guys. We do have some announcements. So 7th tradition, there is a link online where you can donate if you don't have cash with you tonight or if you want to. It is at the Treasure Map home meeting. I don't know what the name of it is. Oh, it's up here on these boards that are new that I did not see. Details. Also, we have these really nice cards that you can hand out to anyone that you meet that gives a link of where we're at and what our website is as well. It's a good way to get new members and to bring the Big Book to other individuals. And I don't know if we have any other announcements. We good? Excellent. And now, please welcome Kelly to read the 12 steps.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm an alcoholic.
Kelly.
How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to the alcoholics and to practice this principle in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thank you, Kelly. And now please welcome Buddy to read our 12 traditions as we pass the baskets. Thank you in advance for your generosity and support. Tradition 7 states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
Hi, I'm Buddy. I'm alcoholic. The 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks, buddy. We talk a lot about home group membership at the Treasure Map Group because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does it mean to be a home group member? Here is a brief excerpt from the AA General Service Conference approved pamphlet on the AA group. Traditionally, most AA members through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is a group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home at any of these meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and might also affect AA as a whole, a process that forms the very cornerstone of the AA's service structure. As with all group conscious matters, each AA member has one vote, and this ideally is voiced through their home group. Over the years, the very essence of AA strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find in the home group a solid, continuing support system, friends, and very often a sponsor. We also learn firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her own group, a member says, part of my commitment is to show up to my home group meeting, greet the newcomers at the door, and be available to them, not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are people who know me, listen to me, and steer me straight when I am off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers. If you are interested in making the Treasure Map meeting your home group, please again see Randy at the back table, at the break, or after the meeting. Now, before we start with our speakers for the evening, please remember to shut off or silence your cell phones. Thank you. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Kyle, okay, back there, as our short speaker. Slowpoke.
My name is Kyle. I'm an alcoholic. Sobriety date is April 1st, 2010. I have a sponsor. I sponsor other people. Amy asked me to speak on such long notice. I didn't really have anything prepared. 12-step. The 12-step was told to me that we carry this message because somebody did it for me. When I walked in here, I didn't deserve this message. I didn't at all. I didn't deserve anything. If I got what I deserved, I would have been in prison. And there was men in these rooms that took me through this program and showed me how that book works and showed me how those steps work. And they freely gave me the information of this program that I didn't deserve, and I owe my life to them. And so I do that for somebody else because they did it for me. I can also tell you about this 12-step that it works when nothing else works. And this program, over the 8 years that I've been sober, it's ebb and flow. My program's been really solid at times. It's not been solid at times. That's life. I do really good at it. I don't do great at it. I show up for meetings really well. I call my sponsor all the time, answering the phone all the time, taking service commitments. Other times I get in my own head. I'm too busy. I have too much going on. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do this. It's all this right in the book that we're undisciplined, so we let God discipline us. And that 12-step helps discipline me. There's nothing realer than sitting across the table from another alcoholic, eyeball to eyeball, reading through this book. It's hard for me to sit there across the table from another man and tell him to do something in that book when I'm not doing it myself. I can't sit here and be like, you need to take some inventory. We need to do a 4-step on this, and go home and look in the mirror and know that I haven't done that in 6 months. And so this program that, doing that 12-step holds me accountable. And it's the only thing that I found that holds me accountable. If I'm sitting in there, if I would have got what I wanted when I got into these rooms, I just wanted to get sober. I wanted my shit back. I wanted the judge to leave me alone. I wanted to quit going to jail. So, I would have stopped at probably like step 8 or 9, and I would have sold this program short a million times over. I wouldn't have had any fellowship. I wouldn't have met the amazing people that I've met in these rooms, the people I call friends today that don't answer the phone each time I call. I wouldn't have had a relationship with God. I just would have got sober and I would have been miserable. And it's working with others that's developed that. It's just is an amazing process. It's beautiful. One of the best things I've ever saw in this program. I was working with the first guy I sponsored. I worked with him for maybe 4 or 5 months. He lived a ways away, and kind of worked with him and transitioned into a sponsor that was a little closer to his hometown. And he invited me up to his second birthday. And I went to his local clubhouse, went to his second birthday party, and I think 22 people from his family showed up to watch his second birthday. And that was an incredible, and it was nothing I did. I just shared the program with him. He did it. God did it. But what an incredible, thing to be a part of and watch all those people's lives that were touched by him being sober and him working this program. It's just been a blessing. And then that accountability thing, like I said, I've rested on my laurels in this program. I've messed up in sobriety. I've gone out and had to make amends that I didn't think I would have to make amends for in sobriety. And it's really humbling to go make an amends in sobriety. It's easy to sit there and be like, well, I was drunk. I was an asshole. I was manipulative and I lied. It's harder to do that when somebody knows you're 4 years sober and did that, or 5 years sober. And what I found is when I'm resting on my laurels, when I'm not working with other people, that's when I get in my own head. And going back to those steps, it's a selfish program, but if I sit there on 6 and 7 or 5 and just sit there and focus on myself all the time, I don't get anywhere. I don't gain any ground. I have to give those things up to God. And by working with other people is how I do that. If I just sit there and talk to my sponsor about my problems and then think about my problems and talk to my sponsor about my problems and think about my problems, I'm still just living in that problem. There is no solution. And for me, the only way I've ever found that solution is by giving this program away. When I work with other people, like I said, it holds me accountable. It makes me want to be a better person because I have somebody else that's counting on me to do the same thing. And I can't be full of shit. I can't sit there and tell somebody, you should do this if I'm not doing it. They'll see right through it. And I can't live with myself when I do. So, a 12 step is a vital step, and I do it because somebody else did it for me. Like I said, I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve this program when I came in here, and I'm just blessed that I got to be a part of it and somebody showed me how it works. So I'm just grateful for sponsorship and for the men in this program that came before me. Show me how this thing works. That's all I got.
Thank you. Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce Mike D. sharing on step 12.
It's okay. I get it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Donnelly. I'm an alcoholic. And it is a pleasure to be here tonight. And we've made the rounds, right? Back on February 1st was our very first treasure map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we have rotated between some big book study and some speakers speaking on those steps. And so tonight will be the last one on 12. So we'll restart this process next week. We're going to have a little bit of a different format. We're going to have some tables set up. We're going to dig a little deeper into the big book, right? So we'll build some momentum, right? So we'll just keep going through step, speaker, step, speaker, step, speaker. And the format seems to be well liked. I have some good news for the home group members here and other visitors. The second treasure map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is being started in Bismarck, North Dakota. They're replicating our format, and just very humbled by that. Very humbled by that. It's tremendous. And hopefully more to come. I know Brookings could use a good meeting. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. They could use 2 good meetings. Anyways, just kidding. Good people. Good people. Hey, I want to take a moment. I'm in the lumber business. I want to thank our buddy from Spokane and the Oregonians over here. How great is that? One more round of applause for the West Coasters. Yeah. That's terrific. You guys are always welcome, and you can come visit us online and listen to the meetings if you'd like. If you need more information on that, you can see Randy in the back. Everyone's welcome. So thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Pardon me? and they can stay. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we need workers really bad. So we need workers really bad. So if you feel like staying, stick around. We're coming to the last portion of this, right? And so when we started a couple of weeks ago on the 12th step, we talked about 3 parts to it, right? And the first part is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And we talked about why that's crucial. And it's crucial because oftentimes we'll misdiagnose ourselves. We'll really, truly, absolutely believe, as well as the people around us, that we have a drinking problem, right? And if we dig into that book, even just a little bit, we can tell they're talking about something very, very different than someone who drinks a lot. Although that certainly is symptomatic of me, and I suspect many of you. The real problem of the alcoholic, it says in our book, centers in his mind. And it's interesting that philosophers and theologians and psychologists and from all over thought that the mind and the brain were different things. And sometimes we use them synonymously. And really that can maybe be interpreted as a little bit of a misdefinition. Breath is to my lungs as my thoughts are to my brain, right? So the mind is sort of this biological organ that I have, coupled with my soul, where I reason out life, you know? And so if something's wrong with one or both of those, in my case, certainly one, a lot of evidence to say 2, but we'll go with 1 tonight. That's that broken soul that as my mind, as my life looks at life and tries to reason it out, it's going to come up with false conclusions. And one of them was very basic to me, was that I drank too much, that I had a drinking problem. And it looked like that. And I had all the evidence to prove that I did. And when I came in here and I started to listen to what you guys said to me, it turns out that I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a living problem. I had a thinking problem. I had this thing they call the broken soul. And no matter how much I try to fix that soul, no matter how much I try to put things into it to satiate it, no matter what that is, money, man, I don't know, work, reputation, getting you to think something of me that I don't really deserve, falsifying things to make me look better, putting other people down, man, I don't know, physical appearance, work, promotions, even relationships, nothing seemed to scratch the itch. Nothing seemed to satiate that. And when I would take just a drink, I'm not talking about being drunk right now, I'm talking about just a couple of sips, I got this and I got it every time. I don't know why, but I felt like when I was sober, that there were just these tremendous knots in my gut. And no matter what I would do, I couldn't untie them. No matter what I would do, I couldn't find any relief from these knots. And then I'd have a couple of belts. And again, I'm not talking about being drunk. I'm talking about just a couple of drinks. Maybe a shot in a beer, maybe just halfway through the beer. I would get this. Gonna be okay. I'm not sure how, don't really care how. I just know I'm here, right? I know the magic elixir's in front of me and I know it's gonna be all right, at least for a while, you know? And so if I live my life in a similar fashion, doesn't even have to be the same way, just in a similar fashion that is selfishness, closed-minded, arrogant, narcissistic, me, that's gonna produce knots in my gut. Even if the me is less than the way it was before, right? Those knots are gonna be produced. And if I don't have a loving God to reach into me to untie those things through voices of my friends in the fellowship, through these steps that we've talked about that are on the wall, through coming to meetings and listening to other people's stories, those knots are going to stay there. And it's only going to be a limited amount of time before I'm going to demand relief from the knots. I got to have relief from the knots. And that's when I'm going to go back and reach again. And so I pray to God that doesn't happen to me or you, right? And here's what's funny. I heard that message for the first couple of months I was sober, and I wasn't sure I believed it. It wasn't until I was sober, and I actually felt worse when I was sober than I did when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous, that led me to believe that possibly, what a great word, possibly, those old timers were right. Maybe those folks maybe they were onto something here, right? Maybe it really wasn't booze. Maybe booze, as the big book calls it, was a false solution. for what was really wrong with me. And so I got the sponsor, Joe, and you guys heard me talk about him. I want to beat that story to death, but Joe was important in my recovery because Joe pointed me to the big book, and he told me that there's one message in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's about working 12 steps when you're not at a meeting. Chronic meeting attendance can be helpful, and it can get us through dark times, and it can help us, take us by the hand and lead us to good people that can walk us through the book. But the real message of Alcoholics Anonymous is what I do with the people who God put in my life when you're not around me. How am I doing there? Who am I acting like there? What am I pretending to be there? Right? And I didn't know how to get out of that. How do you get out of that? Like, forget it, man. I don't know how to get out of that. That isn't something I have. That's something that I was. That was a personality. That was me. Like, I did that. It wasn't like there's me and then I made a mistake and did this. No, that was me. Right? Frazzled and obsessed with these thoughts about what you thought of me. And it was odd because it would be different groups of people, right? Because my work people weren't necessarily the people I hung out with when I was at home. And neither group there was my family. And of those three groups, maybe there were other people that I had just met. And so what I would do is and this was almost unconscious, I would assess you immediately. And then I would determine what you would like. And then I would pretend to be that. Or sometimes I could tell what you didn't like. And for some reason, I was trying to impress these people, so I would be antagonistic to you. And I would intentionally cause arguments and frustrations, right? Wrangling the feathers just to make sure my team knew that I was whoever I thought I was trying to be that night. Craziness. And when you live a life like that, you cannot help but get knots in your gut. At least I can. And again, unless those knots are untied, I'm going to find a solution. And for me, it was booze, and I ran back and back and back. And what Joe encouraged me to do was just trust the possibility that there's another solution. Trust the possibility that if I did the step work, not talked about it, not studied it, not memorized it, not regurgitated stuff I heard in meetings, if I actually did it when I was with me, or alone with him, we could just try that for about 6 to 8 weeks and see what happened. Because it didn't take me months to get through the book. It took me weeks. And so I sort of conceded that my noggin was a little goofy, right? I still concede that, by the way. And I conceded that I had this thing called a broken soul, because it was an ache in me that was in me long before I ever took a drink, way before I took a drink. And we went through that process. Said the third step prayer, got up off our hands and knees, went through the fourth step, resentments, fear, sex conduct, looked at my sex inventory, wrote a sex ideal, as the big book says on page 69 and 70. Went to someone that I did my fifth step with, and told him all my stuff, got on my hands and knees with Joe, said the 6th and 7th step prayer, made another list of 8, and went off and made the amends. And when I did that, I had that thing that the 12th step calls an awakening. And it doesn't mean I got holy, and it doesn't mean I got perfect, far from it. It means I awakened to the fact that God was chasing me my whole life, and I was running from him. I awakened to the fact that there's a loving God who helps people like me. And if you're here tonight, I suspect people like you. Even though I don't believe it. Even though I'm not sure he'll work for me. Because I know what he's like. He's like all good and all holy and all wonderful and all these things that I was taught as a kid. Not necessarily wrong either. But I had that in my head. And so I was afraid, because I was none of those things, as a matter of fact, very far from those things, that he could never like a guy like me, let alone love a guy like me, let alone help a guy like me. Just couldn't even think of that. And I awoke into the fact that that's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it is. That he does love us, and he does want to help us, and he does like us. I didn't know any of that. We're kind of watching ourselves in 10 and 11, we get to this 12th step, and I had that first part. I had that awakening as the result of the first 11 steps. And then we talked last week again, right, about this idea of trying. It says we tried to carry the message to other alcoholics. It doesn't say we were good at it. It doesn't say anybody got sober. It doesn't say anybody knew how to eloquently speak. It doesn't say anybody knew how to make coffee or set up chairs, which, it just happens, right? No. So we tried. We just tried. right? My first 12-step call was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. But you know what? I stayed sober through that. I used to tag along with these older guys, and they knew exactly what to say and exactly how to pronounce the words and exactly how to grab that guy and exactly how to get emotional appeal out of him. They knew exactly how to do that. I knew how to do none of it. They just grabbed me by the collar and took me. And I'd stand back and listen. Then they'd say, "You got anything to say?" "No, I'm good, man. I'm good." Right? I don't want to mess the guy up. They're like, "I don't think you can mess him up. He's laying on the floor. I'm not sure what you can do to him right now. So give it a shot," right? "You need to get sober." They're like, "Don't do that. That's the wrong thing to do." "So you told me to give it a shot." "I'm trying." Yeah, tried to carry the message. And there's another part in there that I think really ties into that third part, and that is, it says we tried to carry the message. So what's the message? What message are we supposed to be trying to carry? Well, I think that's what this meeting's about. At least we hope it is. And we think the message is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that it's a direction manual on how to work the steps. And if we follow the direction manual, we'll get it. That's what our title is, right? The Treasure Map Group. Sandy Beach's famous line, right? It's all about following a process. And if others will follow along with us, if we'll continue to follow that same path, then I'm still responsible as much as I was the day I walked in here to follow that path. But sometimes I think we say some things that we believe and mean well intentionally to be the message, and I'm not sure it is, right? Like sometimes I hear that you're supposed to be good. Well, there's nothing wrong with being good, and I guess if you have an option between the alternative, I would choose good, so I'm with you on that. But what is that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's what they're talking about. It might be at some point, but I don't know that that's what they're talking about. I also hear them sometimes go to meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days, 90 meetings in 90 days. Again, great advice. I got nothing against that advice. I think that's great advice. Just don't know that that's the message. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd sit in a room and there'd be 12 people in there. And there was no name tag, right? Here's Craig, he's been sober 25 years. Here's Bob, he's been sober 8 or 9 or 10. Here's Shirley. I had no idea how long anybody's been sober. I had no idea if they'd ever done an 8th step or a 9th step, regardless if the meeting was on 8 and 9. I had no idea. All I know is I'd sit in that room of 10 or 12 people and we'd go around in a circle and we would talk about whatever the topic was. And I had no way of discerning whether what was coming out of those folks were true or false. No way of knowing it. And so I knocked on my sponsor's door one day and I said, "Man, I don't know who to believe, because one guy says this and then the other guy says that. How am I supposed to know?" One guy says you don't have to do a 4-step. He's been sober 4 years. That's a pretty good run, 4 years. It was absolutely unfathomable to me when I came in that someone could not drink for 4 years. And that guy sat there and he said he never did a 4-step, never needed to. And then there's another guy over here, and he's got 4 years, and he says you absolutely have to or you'll get drunk. I don't know who to believe, because those are completely different messages, right? And he laid this on me. He said, "A man who knows the truth cannot be lied to. A man who knows the truth cannot be lied to." It doesn't mean people won't try to, but if you know the truth, you cannot be lied to. That made sense to me. That made sense to me. Because the guy who was saying you don't have to do a 4-step with 4 years, he wasn't trying to be an idiot, right? He really wasn't. Like, he was just telling you his deal, right? So far, after 4 years of not drinking, he hadn't done a 4-step. He didn't tell you why, right? He didn't need to. That wasn't the topic, right? So that line really took me. That line really took me. And I started to study Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started to study our history, and I started to figure out where it came from, and I started to read the literature, other books in the big book that support the message in the big book. And I began to get somewhat, I wouldn't say it's full even today, but a more comprehensive view of what we're trying to do here, given the example from books like Dr. Bob and the Old Timers, right? Pass it on, right? Reading those stories of the first edition. Big book, which by the way are on our website. If you want to check them out, they're free. You can just click on them and read a story. Those boys were players. They were gamers in this thing, right? And they were dealing with really, really low bottom drunks. And we're not always dealing with super low bottom drunks. Doesn't mean the heart isn't broken as deeply, right? And man, they were trying really hard to carry that message. They were trying. Doesn't say they did it well, just says they tried. Matter of fact, Wilson's very open about his failures in our big book, right? How often he tried and bunch of failures, you know, and then man, somebody'd land, you know, and he'd get him in that room upstairs at Dr. Bob's house. And if you ever go to Cleveland, man, it's a tremendous experience. We're hopefully, this is something in our social committee here at the Treasure Map group, we're hopefully going to plan a trip for next June to go to Founders Day, right? Out in Akron, you know? So maybe we'll get a bus and we'll hightail it out there and do all that kind of stuff, right? And you can see all these things. I've been out there. It's absolutely tremendous. And in those early days, if you were sponsored by Dr. Bob, you were at his house at 6 o'clock in the morning because his wife was doing a spiritual study, a Bible study, and you had to be at that, right? Take half hour, 40 minutes. They knelt down. They did the whole deal. As soon as you walk into Dr. Bob's house, there's a staircase. You go up the stairs, and that's where they would do it. They would kneel down and say the third step prayer if you were new. And then they would all sort of talk about it together and say, do you think Veronica's serious? Right? Do you think Craig, do you think? Craig's like, no, I don't think so. I've known her a long time. I don't think so. I'm just kidding. He wouldn't say that. All right? But they would vote whether you were serious. And if there was someone in that group that thought you were serious, that's who your sponsor was. And in some parts of Cleveland, you weren't even allowed to go to a meeting until you completed a fifth step. Right? Why? Because this is a program of action. You didn't need a meeting to do the first 5 steps. You needed either a sponsor or the big book to do the first 5 steps. You did not need a meeting to do them. And they were concerned that the meetings would distract from people actually working the steps. How about that one? It's interesting. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics. And to me, that precedes right into that third part, which we're going to talk a lot about tonight, and that's practicing these principles in all of our affairs. And how does that tie in with the big book? And how does that tie in with our literature? And how does that tie in with our message? And so this idea of all of our affairs, that's a wide net, right? I think that covers just about everything except drinking, right? So you got the drinking part, and then you got everything else. That covers everything else, right? In all of our affairs. And so, again, I don't know really where you're at, but I look at how I looked at this part of that 12 step with Joe's direction. And he said it starts with the closest people to you, right? Because our book tells us we have a much greater demonstration of these principles in our home and in our work rather than sort of out in the AA public, right? What really matters is, am I doing this in my house, right? How's my house look, right? And so for me, it starts and ends with my wife. It doesn't end with my wife. That's an expression. It starts with my wife, right? And, you know, the big book has this chapter that's often unread, and it's called Two Wives. And it's really a tremendous chapter. And it often gets overlooked, and sometimes it gets criticized for some of its jargon and some of its stance on how the wife is supposed to react to the alcoholic who's trying to recover. But I see it deeper than that. I got to be honest with you. I see it very differently than just a set of directions for some woman in 1930 who was the sort of stereotypical quasi-submissive woman who just takes whatever the old man gives her. I don't think they're saying that at all. I really don't. And I've been through that. I've been through the book a lot. I know there's verbiage that may lead some to believe that, but I think if we keep reading it over and over again, we're going to get a different message, and that's this. How do you love someone when they're unlovable? I think that's really the message of that chapter. And although it's not written to, you know, 2 husbands who are chubby and losing their hair, I think it still applies to me, even though it's called Two Wives. I can juggle a pronoun here or there and still get the same message. Why not? And what I find is not self-esteem. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to, it doesn't say that. It says love. It says love. Right? Not my way, not fair. It says love. And that blows me away. That absolutely blows me away. There's a great line in that chapter, and it says, that's in Family Afterwards, which we'll talk about in a minute. I got a little line here I want to read you. This is, I just love this. I think it's just great. It says, our homes have been battlegrounds many an evening. In the morning we have kissed and made up. Our friends have counseled chucking the men out. And we have done so with finality, only to be back in a little while, hoping, always hoping. Our men have sworn great solemn oaths that they were through drinking forever. We believed them when no one else would or could. Then, in days, weeks, or months, a fresh outburst. And they don't tell that person to go. They don't tell that person to stay either. They don't make an opinion on it. They says, here's how you love that person. Here's how you love that person. Here's how you love that person. And to me, that, man, this is all about, from chapter 7 on is all about step 12 to me. Right? How do I love that person? Now, my wife doesn't drink, and so I've not found myself in this particular position, and my heart breaks for any spouses out there that are in that position, wives or husbands. But I've been in positions where people have hurt me really bad, where they broke promises, where they absolutely insisted that life should be this way, and I disagreed completely. How do you love that person? How do you love that person? How do I practice those principles in that affair when I'm at odds? Right? When the scales seem to be completely balanced out of my favor, how do I practice the principles then? And I think 2 Wives gives us some illustrations on how to do that, how to apply those things. If we can just read the text and it's in what they're trying to say to us. There's tremendous things there. Don't argue. Walk away. Hey, you know what? I'm getting a little upset right now. Let's come back to this a little later. Right? Really good, solid, practical advice on how to practice these principles in all our affairs. Right? Now, if I'm sober for a while and I'm at 19 meetings a week, I met a guy. He was on the West Coast. Hey, no offense, gang. No offense. And he talked about how long he'd been sober, and God bless him, it was a long time. And I'm not, this is not a judgment of the guy. I'm just having a conversation with you, right? And he talked about all the meetings he went to, and it was nearly 14 a week. And he'd been sober like a decade, right? And he kept going to the meetings because his wife was leaving him. And I'm going, just asking the question, right? Not a sponsor, so I can't tell him. I'm asking, right? And I say, so how much time do you spend at meetings? Well, and they're usually 45 minutes, an hour ahead, right? Help set up, and then I go to the meeting, and then I'm there, we have coffee afterward, and so that's, 2 hours maybe. And so I go, so you have a job? And he said, yeah. So I said, well, just quick math in my head, 14 meetings at 2 hours, that's 28 hours a week. Well, I want to stay sober. Hey, man, I honor that, right? I honor that. But if you got a 40 or 45 or 50 hour a week job and you're spending 28 hours in Alcoholics Anonymous and you're wondering why the wife is leaving, do the math, right? And so I think at some point, and I don't know about your recovery, I only know about mine. At 9 years, I hit a wall. I hit a wall. Nothing was wrong. I'm telling you, nothing was wrong. And yet I couldn't get that ache out of my gut. Couldn't get that ache out of my gut. And what I had done is I had unintentionally began to pretend. I had unintentionally began to pretend that things were okay because I was sober. I had unintentionally began to pretend that things were okay because, I had 9 Roman numerals. Like, that was a big number. That was a crazy number to me. I couldn't believe I had that. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working anymore. Well, it was working. It was. Sponsorship taught me that. Another guy who practices these principles in all of his affairs helped me to practice these principles in all my affairs at a deeper level. See, what I had come to learn was that the pain in recovery is not the same pain as outside of recovery. Pain of outside of recovery, this is the way I look at it today, it's the result of my behavior and my actions. And sometimes in recovery it can be too, but really I think it's a little different. When I've become awakened that this God is chasing me, I now see those aches and those pains and those agonies within my gut as a call from him to go deeper, as a call from him to be more intimate with him, to open myself up more to him, to let him guide me in the areas that I'd rather not have him guide me in. Because I got this one. You can handle the drinking and, a couple of other things that I'm really struggling with. You can have those, God. and then I'll do the rest. Practice these principles in all our affairs. That's a tough order. It's a tall order, man. 2 Wives goes on to say that the essence of recovery is really God taking these things. It's interesting here on page 120. It says, we never try to arrange a man's life as to shield him from temptation. And we hear this all the time, right? Got to stay out of the barber's chair, got to change your playmates in your playgrounds. Big Book is clear, takes another position. It says we don't shield from temptation. Sometimes that's really good advice, right? But to simply shield is maybe less accurate. It says the slightest disposition on our part to guide his appointments or his affairs so he will not be tempted will be noticed. Now, I'm assuming that most or all of us are alcoholic here. Imagine the person that you're having a relationship with trying to guide your behavior so that you're not tempted to drink. I'm sure you'd all respond extraordinarily positively to that, right? It says, make him feel absolutely free to come and go as he likes. This is important. It says, if he gets drunk, don't blame yourself. God has either removed your husband's liquor problem or he has not. Wow. So now they're telling the wife what they tried to tell us for the last 7 chapters, that you can't do it. Mike, you can't do it. Now they're telling our spouses, hey, he can't do it or she can't do it, right? Love is the answer. It just is. And it keeps rotating around, and it goes right into the family afterward. And it talks about the guy who gets sober, and one of the first things that he tries to do is get his financial life in order. Like, if I could just get enough money to pay the bills, and some of us have come in here, like myself, in a tremendous amount of debt and a tremendous amount of financial disarray, and we really believe, and we're not lying about it, we really believe it, that if we just got the P&L statement worked out, we would be in good shape. Things would be better. And certainly there's no denying that, more money and bills paid brings more peace than no money and no bills paid. Right? I would agree with that. I'm not anti-money here. But it's the fervor that they're warning against, right? The fervor that they're warning against. When those founders wrote our book, there was 3 or 4 big sections of the Bible that they used to be influenced. They were Oxford group members, and the Bible influenced the writing of the Big Book. It's just our history. It's not an endorsement. It's just our history. And one of them was the book of James. They read the book of James constantly, right? And at one point, they actually considered calling their own group the James Gang because they were so influenced by the book of James. And there's another part, and it's 1 Corinthians 13, right? The love chapter. Love is patient, love is kind, Craig is not. You've read it. So. And then there was a third part, and that's the Sermon on the Mount, right? That's when the big guy lays the smackdown about world vision there, right? And in there, he warns. There's this part where he talks about serving God or mammon. Can't serve both. And between pages 126 and about 128, they lay this out really clearly. And they say a guy who goes after money because money's the answer, and money will fix things, and money will help the home, and money will help the family, and money will help the kids, is blind. Put that fire out as fast as you can. That is not true, right? And we know that's true. Somewhere inside of us, we know that's true because wherever we came from, whatever family we came from, however functional or dysfunctional it was, or whatever combination thereof, if I were to ask you today, if your parents had made another $75,000 a year or spent 2 more hours a week loving you, face-to-face, eye-to-eye, interacting with you, which one would you pick? You already know the answer. I don't even have to go there. Right? These are things we already know. They're things we already know. They're inside of us. Right? And what the 12-step and this part of the 12-step calls to do is just live it out. Just act it out. Just let it come out. It's okay to be that way because that's how we are anyway, right? And it goes on to talk about then the other side, right? Where the guy gets a sudden spiritual upheaval, this crazy spiritual awakening, and he is absolutely on fire. and everybody who doesn't do it his way is wrong, and he's just, man, he is spiritually intoxicated, right? That's a good expression from AA. We talk about the spiritually intoxicated, right? And you would think that Wilson would give the same advice. You think that the first 100 would give the same advice. Put water on that. He's crazy. They don't. You know what they say? Put gas on it. Put gas on it. Because if it's really God, God will balance that guy out. He'll come off the mountaintop at some point because we're all living real life, and so the valley's coming, right? And it's great. The great thing about being on a mountaintop is you're on a mountaintop. The bad thing is the next step you take is you're descending to the valley again, right? That God will balance all that out. But encourage him to continue to seek and to strive and to try to understand and to keep moving forward down that spiritual path. Don't put that fire out, right? And I think that's really interesting. I really do. I love how he just throws that in there. You know, that it's just interesting to me. It says, we families of Alcoholics Anonymous keep few skeletons in the closet. That's true. Everyone knows about the other alcoholics' troubles. This is a condition which in ordinary life would produce untold grief. There might be scandalous gossip, laughter at the expense of other people, and a tendency to take advantage of intimate information. Among us, these are rare occurrences. We do talk about each other a great deal, but we almost invariably temper such talk by a spirit of love and tolerance. Again, practicing these principles in all our affairs. Gossip, right? Versus sharing with one another and having those traditions be honored and respected. So when you tell me a secret about your life, you can trust it's not going anywhere, right? And when I need someone to tell my secrets in life, I can trust the people that I love in this room to share those talks with and to share my heart with, and I know it's not going anywhere. What a tremendous, unshakable foundation for living, right? The idea that there's real people out there, and I can be one of them if I practice these principles, that other people can have confidence back into life. By being a person that's where you display the trust that other people desperately need, you can reinvigorate their confidence in life. Because there's at least one person out there that they can trust. There's more than that. There's more than that. But that's not what I thought life was like when I came in. And I suspect that for some of us, it wasn't that way either. I didn't trust anybody when I got in here. Nobody was trustworthy. Why? Because I was wearing my own glasses. I was untrustworthy, therefore no one else is either. I know how this works, right? You act trustworthy, but really, there's an angle. That's how I thought everybody was. And I met one guy, and he shattered all those illusions. And now maybe, if I'm willing to practice these principles, and someone trusts me with something, and I respect the fact they trusted me with it, maybe I can be at least one person that can help restore some confidence about living in their life. Maybe, right? But if I'm not practicing it, not going to happen. Not going to happen. No hope of it happening. And we are all about hope if we're about anything. I like this part too. It says, those of us who have spent much time in the world of spiritual make-believe, Greg, have eventually seen the childishness of it, right? It says, the dream world has been replaced by a great sense of purpose. Great sense of purpose, accompanied by a growing consciousness of the power of God in our lives. That idea where it says the great sense of purpose, that's repeated at least 3 times in these final chapters. Great sense of purpose. It talks about the wife having a great sense of purpose to other wives who are living with men who are alcoholic. And again, you could switch those pronouns around to say husband too, right? A great sense of purpose. I got to tell you, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I had no purpose. None. Zero. It was getting by, getting through the day, right? Making sure the sheets were dry when I woke up. The guy was not a good guy. I was a mess. Somebody's giggling at that? Why is that funny? Okay. Yeah, you've all had dry sheets. You've all had dry sheets. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Yeah, right? No, it's true, right? I had these simple little things that if I could just get through or by, it'd be all right. And I was afraid when I started sponsoring people that I would like hurt them or I would say something that would like, give them bad advice or something, right? And then Joe sat me down. He's like, you're not supposed to give any advice. And I'm like, well, you give me advice all the time. He's like, that's different. And here's what I want you to do. I just want you to open the book and go page by page, line by line, with another guy crossing your kitchen table, in a coffee shop, don't care where. Line by line. Let the book guide your sponsorship, not your own opinions. Let the book guide it. And he was right. And all of a sudden, from trying to do this, and failing a million times over, one guy became a dad before my eyes. And I had no influence on it because all we did was the book and I didn't give him any advice. And I went, wow. I saw another guy become a husband and his wife was happy and she was glad she married him. Isn't that weird, right? And one guy who never could manage money or balance his checkbook or anything like that finally found some sanity in his wallet. Right? And he ain't rich, but he's got a little bit in some 401k and he's going to take care of his family at some point. And that is a life that's changed. And it's simple stuff. It's simple everyday stuff. And it happens by trying to just practice these principles in our affairs. To respect the trust that someone gives us when they share their life. When someone says, I don't know what to do, open the book and not give your opinion. Right? Here's what the book says. 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 There's a buddy of mine, his name is Dave J. He lives out in Billings, Montana. And his legacy in my life is incredible. Right? And Dave would, no matter what you asked Dave, didn't matter what you asked Dave. Dave, what's the temperature outside? Well, the big book says. Like, that was his answer to everything. He never what's your opinion, Dave? Well, my opinion is that we should go back to the big book. Like, that was just always what he would say. And when he did that, he knew that he was in a safe boundary. That he couldn't hurt anyone if he simply pointed people back to the text that had saved 2 million or 4 million alcoholics over the course of time, whatever that number is, those who have passed and however that number works. If he just pointed him back to the thing that worked almost every single time, he couldn't hurt anybody. Right? I think that's pretty beautiful. And by the way, he's got, I don't know, got to be close to 40 years. And he's one of those humble men I've ever met. You know? And he knows this book inside and out. And there's no arrogance in him about knowing it. Right? It's always about the direction he's pointing people to. Right? This is what it is. This is what it is. This is what it is. A couple more things and then we'll keep moving on here. So it talks about, this idea of getting reestablished, right? It says the alcoholic may find it hard to reestablish friendly relations with his children. Young minds were impressionable while he was drinking. Without saying so, they may cordially hate him for what he has done to them and to their mother. The children are sometimes dominated by a pathetic hardness and cynicism. They cannot seem to forgive and forget. This may hang on for months, longer after their mother has accepted dad's new way of life and thinking. We've hurt some kids out there. If we've drank when we were married or whatever that might have been. And repairing those things can take a long time. But again, it comes back to that one thing. Do I love my kids? And if I do, how am I showing them that? Or do I just claim it? Because, I'm really busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. I got a lot, man. I'm telling you, I got work. I got to be at AA, right? I got to have all of you see me. I got to have all kinds of stuff, right? My boss needs this. I need that. I got to prepare for a meeting tomorrow. How am I loving my kids? Am I practicing these principles in my home? Right? Because if a report doesn't get done, that can be a bad deal. And I'm not saying don't do the report. I'm not saying that. Because I got to practice them at work too, right? But if that's all I'm doing, and at least in my house, we would do things like, I don't know, we played around, we had all kinds of different things, but we would do things to try to engage each other. We'd go on little weekends. They didn't have to be expensive. We didn't have a lot of money to do it anyway, right? But the point was, we just tried to connect. And it was hard. I'm a stepdad, and I got 2 tremendous boys. Some of you know my boys. You know they're terrific. Big-hearted guys. And man, sometimes there's just a wall, right? Because I'm not the dad. I mean, I want to be the dad, but I'm not the dad, right? But my job isn't to be the dad. My job is to be the male that loves them. And if they want me to be the dad, I get that job. That's a job that's bestowed on me. It's not a job I go have, right? It's bestowed on me. And if I love them and I sit with them and I listen to them and I just talk to them, which my boys and I do still today. My son, we had Father's Day here a week or so ago. I don't know, I didn't talk about this last week, did I? No? Good. But whenever Father's Day was, I don't even remember anymore. It was Sunday. I know some Sunday there was a Father's Day. And it was this last one, so you do the math. And my son, Cody, knew that we'd all be crazy and barbecuing and the grandkids would be there and, you know, it'd be a nut house, which is what we like. We like the nut house, right? Like home for some of us. We love the nut house, right? And he called me on Saturday. And he said, you know, tomorrow's going to be really busy and we're going to have a bunch of stuff going on and it's going to be anarchy and I'm not going to be able to spend any time with you. Can you come over today so we can just spend some time together because tomorrow's going to be all about everybody else and not about you? Man, I got to tell you, Father's Day for me was Saturday. I don't know how you get there. I don't know how, I can't give you advice on how to get that. I can't give me advice on how to get it because I don't know how I got it. Except that I simply tried to listen to this old guy who had tobacco-stained teeth tell me, just love them. Right? But not mushy love, like be a parent. Right? Like guide, just be whatever, just be what your role is as best you can. And if you don't know, learn. Right? There's a great spiritual giant, his name is Aquinas, and he would say, not having an answer or being ignorant to an answer is not justifiable for you to act like a fool. The first level of foolishness is a desire not to seek the answer you miss. How about that? See, and that was part of my deal too, right? Practicing these principles in all our affairs means to me, at least as I understand it, that I'm supposed to be a seeker. That as I look around my life and I see the things that I don't know and I don't understand, not knowing and not understanding is no longer a viable reason to be a jackass. That there's people in this room that know about whatever it is I don't know about. And to have the humility to go to them and say, hey, teach me how to do this, teach me how to do that. I don't know. I was 31 years old before my sponsor taught me how to balance a checkbook. You know why? Because I never asked him. Because I was afraid to tell someone I didn't know how to do a checkbook. I said, I have no idea how to do a checkbook. He goes, yes, you do. You learned it in 3rd grade. It's addition and subtraction. What you're defining as a checkbook problem is really a laziness problem. Thank you. But I didn't want to tell anybody. And so I couldn't. Not wanting to tell someone blocked me off from practicing these principles in all my affairs. Right? I couldn't tell someone I didn't know how to do something. Like, what would you think of me? You'd probably think I didn't know how to do a checkbook, and you'd probably help me. That's about as far as that would go, probably. But in my head, you'd all gossip about me, and 4 or 6 of you would go over there and be like, oh, Mr. AA doesn't know how to do a checkbook. You know, I mean, just, I don't know. That's like what I thought. You know, that's like really what I thought. And I thought you talked about me like that. Right? I really didn't know that anybody cared about me. What a crappy way to live your life. And what I found is that as I began to try to practice as much as I could love in my wife, in my kids, in the people that I work with, and the people that I work for, that I got all the love I needed. I didn't have to go get it. It was always there for me to receive. That's what grace is. Grace is a free gift that God gives us every second of every day, and it's the same amount to all of us. Nobody gets more and nobody gets less. We have this phrase in Alcoholics Anonymous we say all the time, right? Hang out with the winners. Hang out with the winners. Hang out with the winners. Right? Some people get really offended. If you say that, that means there's losers in AA. Well, I was one of them. It's a true statement. And the idea is not about losers. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding what they mean by winners. And according to the old timers that I've met and talked to, being a winner simply means this. A winner in Alcoholics Anonymous is defined as this: a chronic trier. A chronic trier. And I believe that today. And so practicing these principles in all our affairs means love, I think. It means grabbing all that wisdom that we got from those first 9 steps and that we continually get from 10 and 11 and bringing them to our lives. It means having the humility to ask when we don't know how to do something so that we can learn how to do it. It means living an excuseless life, taking ownership and being responsible. And most importantly, and I think it's the fuel that drives all of that, it's trying as best we can to stay in the moment with a gracious God who gives us life if we stay with him in that moment. So that he empowers us so that we can go out and do those things. We're all gifted. All of us have some skill, some gift, some amazing thing, some fingerprint of God that he has put on you that nobody else has. Nobody else has it. It might be the role you play, right? Like in my life, like no one else can be my wife's husband, right? And if there is, by the way, I'd like to know about it, but I don't, just let me talk to me after the meeting, right? But that's my role. And so if as best I can, as faultingly and as crazily as I might do it at some points, my wife only has one shot at being loved by a husband the way God wants her to be loved by a husband, and I'm that role. My boys only have one shot at a loving dad. My customers only have one shot at an honest salesman. My vendors only have one shot at an honest customer. And it's me. And if you look at my track record, you'd say, no way. Because when I look at my track record, I go, hell no. But that's the old me. That's the old me before the result of those first 11 steps. And it doesn't mean perfection. It's far from perfection. It means being perfected, right? It's not progress. In the 12 and 12, Wilson switches the words up. He juggles them a little bit, right? In our big book, it says, right, we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, right? But Wilson's got 15 years of experience with this thing now, and he juggles those words in step 7. And he pulls us not spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. He says this: progress toward spiritual perfection. God, that's beautiful. But that's hard. And it's painful. And I'm going to hit a wall, and I'm not going to want to go further. And maybe, just maybe, I'm hanging out with people that aren't going to push me to go further. And maybe, just maybe, they don't want me to go further because they don't want to go further. Maybe. It's a challenge. Every day, on our coins, we have this phrase, and it says, to thine own self be true. I have to assess my life. And I have to look at it, and I have to say, am I truly doing this? And if I'm not, am I okay with that? And you might be. And I'll be honest with you, some days I'm really okay with it. And a day or two later, I'm not really proud that I had that attitude a couple of days before it. I hate when I get like that, but I get like that. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. And if there's anything that I hope these first few months have brought to the fellowship here in Sioux Falls or around, for those that have come and those folks online. By the way, we did a calculation the other day, almost 1,400 people listening online, right? It's amazing. If there's any message that we hope that you heard and we hope that you continue to hear, is that we'll help you try. You don't have to do it by yourself, right? And we're going to start a big book study in 2 weeks. We're going to have 2 speakers the next 2 weeks. And 3 weeks from now, we're going to start a big book study. We're in a deeper, not a full big book study like we did before, right? But a little bit deeper, right? Coupled with people's personal experience of applying these things to their life. And then the next round will go a little bit deeper, right? And then a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. There's 3 things that this meeting's about: being the most welcoming meeting in Sioux Falls. And I hope as we close this first round that all of you feel the love that God has for you through our home group members. That's what I hope. The second thing is that hopefully the second purpose of our meeting is to make sure that the message comes out clearly. We hope that's happened. And the third thing, that we walk beside you as you try to live it out, that you know you're not alone and that we're here for you. And so with that, I want to thank you for these last few months. They've been a great honor to me. I want to thank Amy and Mark, who's not here tonight, for chairing these months. All the people behind the scenes that do this stuff, right? All the people that set up chairs and make coffee and get here an hour and a half ahead of time so that everybody can kind of come in and do their thing, right? Thank you. Our 12-step committee, all that's really important. And this place wouldn't be what it is without those people. Lastly, I'll say is this summer we're going to have a big picnic. And so if you'd like to be on that committee, we could use some help, right? In the fall, we're going to do a mini conference. And we're going to bring in some people from around the country. And they're going to tell their experience with the same message and how it changed their life. You get to hear it from a different source, right? And in the fall, it's going to be, we're going to do a big book study, right? So we're just going to keep trying to do things. Hopefully in June next year, we go see Dr. Bob's house for anybody who wants to come, right? But if you're not sure how to try, if you're not sure what to do next, maybe see Randy at the back and sign up for a committee and just get involved here, right? And maybe feel what we feel when we try to serve you as you try to serve everyone else around you. Because to me, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is, sharing God's love with each other through service. So with that, why don't we close with the Lord's Prayer. God bless you all. Have a good evening. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back. It works.
Hey, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Hey, Michael, humility one.
What's that?
When you brought up humility, you talked about.
One more time, sir. I'm sorry.
When you brought up humility.
Yes.